So the safety car restart then. You've got the McLarens on the softs, the Red Bull on the hard, and it's a massive snap of oversteer this for Verstappen. It's actually sensational car control at high speed to have that level of opposite lock and not completely lose the car. But he does have to back out of the throttles to save it, and it allows Charles Leclerc the perfect run. Coming over the line, he's clearly behind Max, and now he can go and attack and make the pass. So through goes Charles. There's a brief little bit of contact here, which Max was very unhappy about, as Leclerc is starting to do what Max kind of did at the start of the race and move back to chase that slipstream from Lando Norris, who's ahead and up on the racing line over here. So Leclerc's just drifting over that way. He's expecting Max to go with him and go that way, but Max is just holding his ground in a straight line, and that is a cause of the contact, but it's minor contact, and they both get away with it. We can see on board the oversteer that Max has. It's just lack of grip through that final corner, washing wide, trying to keep the drivers on a soft tyre, and there's that little bit of contact. To be honest, that could have been a really bad accident for both of them, but it wasn't, and it was in the end in the realm of a minor bit of contact, and Leclerc's through into third place. Verstappen's already on the radio at this point saying, "Oh, what happened to Charles? He's just driven into me." And then, whilst he's on the radio, he gets the next car come up the inside, and that's George Russell for the second little bit of contact in about 600 metres, and Max goes through and keeps the place over George, and this is the moment of contention. So it brings us to our first question today, and that is, why did Red Bull order Max to give the position back to Russell? So, safety car restart. Russell on the soft tyres, as is everyone around apart from Max. So there's Max's massive snap. Charles now has the run, and George is having a big slipstream and a chance to come back through. So, Charles now has this place pretty much sewn up at this point. Max, remember, on the hard tyres, the least grip. As we get to the braking zone, which is just after the 100 metres, it's about here, George has a great chance to also dive down the inside line. Now, to make a move stick, you need to have three things. You need to have the car, your front axle, at least alongside the mirrors of the Red Bull on the outside in this occasion. You need to have the car under control. It needs to be not a late lunge diving in. And you need to be able to keep the car on the track on the exit. So that's the racing guidelines that Russell has to follow here. And as we play it through, he has got his car easily far enough alongside the Red Bull on the outside. So that part is okay. I don't think he's particularly dived in. It's not from a mile back. He's actually already got an overlap with Max as they hit the braking zone. But the questionable part is, as we turn in here with George, there is just a slight oversteer as he finds the dirty air of the Ferrari ahead. So this Ferrari's meant that there's not that much downforce for Russell at this point. He's still got the car under control here, but there's just a slight correction for George, which pitches his car fractionally wider, and there's going to be that slight contact there with Max, and then more oversteer after the contact for Russell. So that is the move for George, and that is the move that Red Bull then said to Max, give the place up. And I think it's a contentious one here. In the end, the stewards actually cleared Max of going off the track and keeping position. But I think it's probably the right call for Max to give up the place. And it certainly made sense at the time. Red Bull would be kicking themselves because it's what led to everything else. And as it turned out, the stewards actually thought it was okay. But I can see why Red Bull thought it wouldn't be. You've got George now up the inside, very cleanly, coming through, finds a little bit of dirty air, but he barely deviates off that apex. There's a slight bit of contact. Max goes through, and George very easily keeps it within the track limits. Personally, I thought that would have been an okay move for George, and according to the guidelines, there should have been Max giving up position. I think Red Bull were kind of right to give that call out of being cautious, especially once it was investigated. But technically, the stewards deemed that little bit of oversteer in the dirty air for Russell meant that he was not in control of the car, and Max would have got away with it. So Max wasn't very happy, and we can hear how that played out now.
Max, can you let Russell through, please? Let Russell through.
What? I was ahead. Wait, what?
My advice is to let him through.
Wait, I was ahead. He just ran me off the road.
But that's the rules. That's the rules we have to play with. It's a shame, but that's the rules.
So Max is ordered by GP to give the place back. And as I said, I can see Red Bull's logic for that. But Max doesn't agree. And what we get next can only be described really as frustration, in Max's own words, red mist, in other words. It's a retaliatory move that Max is just so frustrated here. He's seen the podium slip by. Leclerc's now ahead of him. Russell now has to get ahead of him as well, and he's not happy at the decision that Russell has to pass. So what Verstappen does is back off, and I think here he's trying to prove a point about the racing rules. So he lets George through, clearly backing off on the straight, and then dives in to cause contact at this point. Now, if we watch it again, you can just see that there is really no attempt for Max. He's waved George through, and there's no attempt for him to turn in. He's now just going straight line to the outside and then finally starts to turn the car. But it's really kind of initiating the contact here from Verstappen. And we can see that as well on board with Max now. We've got the front-facing camera, and you can see the same thing here. He's clearly allowing George to come through. He's been, in fact, ordered to let George through. So you can see, checks the mirrors again, checks the mirrors again. There's George. Now, Russell at this point thinks either Verstappen has an issue or he's letting me go through. So through he goes on the outside, and he's not expecting a car to then fire it back in on the inside. Max then at this point does do exactly that. And you can see as we're coming to the corner here, he's not really turning in at this point. And now he's tickled the throttle, and he's now just diving in for what seems to me to be trying to prove a point on the racing guidelines here by being there on the apex, similar to what George had, which caused the collision in the first place and Max to go out wide. So I think he's kind of initiating the contact to try and prove a point here, but it's not a very clever thing to do, barge your car into a rival to try and prove that point. And it's a very cynical bit of driving here from Verstappen, who keeps the place and then 5 corners later finally decides actually he will give it back to Russell just before the DRS and a chance to repass. We have the data as well here, and this pretty much shows what you can see already. Verstappen backing well off the throttle at this point, completely lifts off, but then actually, as he sees George coming around the outside, gives it another little jab of throttle just down here. That's the throttle going back on, just so Max is there to try and prove his point and dive down the inside and have this little bit of barging contact. There's also the steering trace here of Verstappen in the blue, not really turning into the corner at this point, and we could see that again from the onboard and from the outside shots. He's just going straight and causing the contact. And fundamentally, this looks like a driver that is just frustrated. It's the red mist. He's angry inside the cockpit. But you can never use your car as a weapon to hit other cars. This is not Mario Kart. It's not wacky races. And this is kind of the worst thing you can possibly do in a Formula One car. Purposefully crash into someone else. And that's what it looks like to me. And Max hasn't really denied it afterwards because there doesn't seem like there's a defense here. So as it was, he got the 10-second penalty for causing a collision. Obviously, he caused the collision. But I think the bigger thing is, why did he cause it? Was it intentional? To me, and to many people looking on, it looks like yes, in which case 10-second penalty, I don't think it's enough. I think this could have been a very severe penalty for Verstappen, and I think it's going to be talked about a lot next time at the drivers' meeting in Canada.
I mean, my perspective was I just got crashed into. I don't really know why or what the thinking was behind it. In the end, glad that I continued with little damage, and ultimately it punished him a lot more than me. So,
unfortunately, the hard tires had a very low grip. So yeah, that was quite painful. But yeah, basically we just ran out of tires. I mean, in hindsight, was it better to stay out? Maybe, I don't know. It's always easy to say afterwards. And because of those hard tires, you get into those situations.
George has given his take on the incident. What's your take on that, and also the 10-second
I don't need to
penalty?
say anything about it because it doesn't matter anyway, you know, and we can't be critical about anything. So